You're listening to Packers Talk Network. PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that love talking about the Pack. We're not getting into all the national sports media talking points and nonsense. We're sticking with real football, diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down these games during this season, sorting through all the drama and the rumors of the offseason. If you guys want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Give us a follow on all those socials and subscribe to that Packers Talk YouTube channel. All those things are free. Only take a few seconds. Please help us out because we greatly appreciate it and it makes a huge difference. And thank you to all the listeners and subscribers out there. We certainly enjoy having y'all hang out with us every week. And I do apologize. We're a day late here. Usually on Monday nights. Had a little family thing going on last night that was unavoidable. So here we are this evening. We are catching back up several days now removed from the Eagles game. So we're going to get some reactions to the Eagles game. We're going to talk about what we think it's going to take for Willis to get a dub, Willis and crew now. And what we're watching for here this week against the Colts, the return to Lambeau, right? It is at Lambeau, right?
Yes, it is.
Make sure I'm not wrong there.
The home opener.
Yeah, home opener. Okay. But before we get started, we got to get some business taken care of. A few words about our sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse the website at theticketking.com. All right. Tim, how you feeling? Is this are you feeling any different than when you like right after the loss, like when the wounds were still fresh? Like, do you think you've maybe it's not as bad as initially thought?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still feeling pretty uneasy about things when you consider they're 0-1, which it's one game, but not having your quarterback now for who knows how many weeks, could be 2 games, could be 3, could be up to 6.
Yeah,
We don't.
There's like mystery information floating around out there. Like if he can't go this week, what is this? If they're slinging around, what an impactful word you dealt with today.
That was interesting choice of words by Coach LaFleur, but I think that's just to give the Colts a little extra to game plan on this week. Maybe put some doubt in their minds. I would love if we're surprised and he's out there on Sunday, but I think we should plan on at least a couple games. So, yeah, feeling a little uneasy about things. It'd be nice to have a win in their back pockets now, knowing that QB1's down for a little bit,
right.
Especially a winnable game like that in Brazil. It was a tough one to lose. I definitely feel better about it now, a few days out from it. But, still a game that was just very sloppy on the Packers' part. A lot of mistakes. Shot themselves in the foot in a lot of ways. There were some bright spots. There were some things they did well, and definitely it's week 1. Like we talked about last week how excited we were that real football. We got through the off season, we got through preseason, and now we had like real football to play. So I feel like week 1 is this great feeling, and everybody's optimistic. Everybody thinks their team's going to be great, and then the day after week 1 is just like so much garbage is out there because everybody's making these huge assumptions about this team's good and this team's bad and this quarterback's great and this quarterback's terrible. And it's like, it's one game. They have 16, like, it's just such overreaction because we haven't had football since February. So yeah, I don't feel great about where they are. There's a lot of uneasy feeling and certainly a lot of unknown going into this week with Malik Willis as the starting quarterback. But I don't think any kind of goals for the Packers or any kind of expectations, it doesn't change right now, based off of one game. So like, let's not get too far ahead of it. But certainly be feeling better if they got a win or if, Jordan Love was healthy and ready to go against the Colts.
Yeah. I mean, that would be insane. I mean, that would be up there with the Rodgers game, whatever drugs he got at halftime, my knee against the Bears, come back for the win there. Yeah, I can't say that we should expect that. And yeah, it would be nice if, you had the win, you come out of Brazil somehow with the win, whatever way that happens. There's a lot of ways that could have happened, right? Nixon drops a pick six. There's a lot of bad calls by the refs. There's a lot of fingers we could point here, and we just don't need to, I'm encouraged by it. I think the whole like week one in Brazil against one of the best teams in the NFC. I think that obviously the Eagles kind of fell flat at the end of last season, but they started out as hot as anybody. And you can't deny the talent on that team. So, I mean, it's not like they're any kind of slouch or, question mark or anything like that. The Eagles are a good team. So taking them on in a foreign country that a lot of these guys have never been to in Brazil, and no shots fired at Brazil. Sounds like, it was a pretty neat experience. I know there's a lot of questions going into it. There's certainly plenty of contentious things going on in the world that we could get distracted by. So we're not going to do that. But I think that it was always going to be kind of like more than a game, right? There's just so much more that you have to deal with from a preparation standpoint, a long flight, like unknown facilities. Who knows what their nutrition plans are like? Do you bring your own food? Do you have good source of food down there that you trust? Stuff like that. I think all of that just makes the challenge a lot heavier, a lot bigger than just a normal game week that, when you're staying in Green Bay, or even, a short trip. So to me, it's like, it's not that there's an asterisk. It's just like, it's almost like a fourth preseason game. Like you should almost consider this as an exhibition game, just because of the circumstances. It is the, week one. Historically, this week was still week 4 of the preseason. Or I guess technically last week. Anyway, point taken. But the thing is yeah, it's just kind of a little extra. So losing that game to me, it's not that big of a deal, right? Like I don't see it as a big deal. I don't know. I wasn't that frustrated by it. There's definitely things you see and you go, dang, man, like what's going on here? Like, why is this happening? The field surface was bad. And, there's something, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter to Jaden Reed. Like, it does matter, and it matters to each individual differently. Some guys are going to make different decisions about cleats. Some guys are better at keeping their feet underneath them than others. Jaden Reed is one of them. That was, in my opinion, why he had such an excellent game. But, all of those things, there's just so many factors, and it's week one, right? We know that teams in week one are not the same as they are in week 10, 11, 12. Like they never are. Never, right? Maybe you could say the 07 Patriots were. Well, I'll give you that. But other than that, most teams from week 1 to week 10 or on, they're just not the same. So starting here, I don't think it's a bad starting point. That's what I look at it like. What is this as a starting point? Well, you had a pretty ugly game against a pretty good team in, some extra circumstances. And you had several chances to win that game. Shoot, even Malik Willis could have, he had a chance to pull something out. But that's where it's like, if you had chances to win that game, that's a good sign. That's a sign that if you go back and you correct some things, you probably do win that game. If you go into that game and you just get clocked, that's super concerning. You know what I mean? Like, you go in there, you can't run the ball, you can't throw the ball. Jordan Love is getting sacked 20 times or whatever. Like, just total disaster. That's bad. Then we're reaching for the panic button. You know what I mean? Like, then you're going, what happened? Like, who is this team that we thought we were supposed to watch? So getting the loss, yeah, it sucks. Losing sucks. And it could be impactful in the standings later on in the season with 2 good teams that, should be fighting for postseason spots in the NFC. But all in all, I think I'm grateful that the Jordan Love injury seems like it's not as bad as what it looked like at first. There were definitely some bright spots. I mean, my goodness, Jaden Reed, come on. Like, let's just take a second and be like, all right, we're sad about the loss. Now that's compartmentalized. Jaden Reed, he's front runner for MVP right now. I said it. Yeah,
I mean, he was awesome. And he's one of the bright spots. I'm with you. It's 1 week, and let's not panic. Let's not make too much of it. It was a weird game, and the field was horrible, and it was bad for both teams, and it affected multiple players on both teams. And I mean, you can go back and look at the plays. You can look at the all 22s that people have posted online. Like, it's unbelievable how much slipping there was in that game. Weird, and it's in Brazil. It's on a Friday night. Like, it was unique circumstances.
Right.
And they did play a decent team. Now we'll see what the Eagles end up being. I don't have a good read on the Eagles after that game. But it was a game that was there for the taking for the Packers, and they were very sloppy, especially offensively.
Very sloppy.
And you can expect some of that your first game of the season. And in a lot of ways, it's, these teams have to get up to speed. And the football around the league has been generally early in the season is kind of sloppy. You don't see quality football for a while. But what I keep coming back to is, if they would have lost that game, it's one thing to lose the game, but you lost the game. Now you lost your quarterback. And even though maybe he's just out 2 games, maybe he's out 3 games, it changes things a lot now, because you're 0-1 and you got to find a way to win some games while he's out, because you can't be sitting there at 0-4 when Jordan Love comes back thinking you're going to win the division or the playoffs. That would be really tough to even find a wild card spot at that point. So this is some real early season adversity for them, and major adversity to lose your quarterback. So some of the sloppiness, some of the mistakes, the concerning play on defense. I mean, it was a different scheme, but damn, there were a lot of things that look like Joe Barry's defense. And again, it might be completely different week 2. It might be completely different by week 5 or 6 or 10, whatever. There's enough questions and enough sloppiness where it makes going in the week 2 with Malik Willis now as the quarterback, like, who's going to step up and what are they going to do now to overcome the loss of Jordan Love and find a way to win a football game? And, Jaden Reed was really good, and there were some other bright spots as far as guys who played well, but there were some concerning things where I don't want to draw major conclusions and say this is going to be the way it is all season. But it was one game, and that's what we're basing it off of. And there were concerns that they need to get cleaned up now going into the Colts game, because their margin for error now going from Jordan Love to Malik Willis has shrunk a lot. And, where you could focus on certain areas of the team that need to clean up, you have that. And now you got to figure out, like, how do we game plan with this quarterback who just got here 2 weeks ago and is new to the system, new to the team. It's they got a lot of work to do going into the home opener against the Colts.
No doubt there's a lot of work to do, but I'm encouraged that, again, it's week 1, and to me there's stuff to build on. We got a friend in the comments here. We got Rev Trev joining us. Says, to me the Eagles look better. Saquon alone is another difference maker on a very good offense. That's true. The Eagles started out really hot last year, and now you've added Saquon Barkley to that group. And I know that in New York, Saquon was not looking great, not looking sort of as advertised there for a little bit. I think now maybe we're seeing, like, it's a pretty disastrous situation there in New York. Things are not going well over there. But he is still a great running back. And behind that offensive line in Philly, which is pretty damn good line, we saw that. We can't forget that either, right? You can't forget that sometimes there's special players on the other side of the ball, and they're going to do what special players are going to do, but that's a big test early on. And if you're going to get a slice of humble pie, you're going to get, maybe something to measure yourself against, at least until you stack some wins and get further down the season. That's not a bad one. There's a lot there to work with. Rev's got a question, though. Is why can't we stop the run? Feels like we have struggled for decades versus the run. Until the bye week, we face a ton of great running backs. Yeah, Rev, heard you there, sir.
That's a great question, because I don't think anybody has the answer. I don't think they have the answer in Lambeau Field. And, we as fans don't have the answer. Different scheme, different players at times. They can't stop the run. And you can credit the Eagles. They do have a good offensive line, even though there's been some changes there. And Saquon Barkley is still a really good running back. But Packers defensive line is supposed to be really good. You know, they're paying a lot of money for a lot of guys who had bad games. I mean, Kenny Clark, I don't know who that was wearing 97, but he looked awful. Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith did not play well. So I don't know. I don't know what they can do. I mean, they spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of high draft picks. Quay Walker's another guy. He's a first-round pick. He had a bad game. Like, you need your players to play well. And maybe it's the first game of a new scheme, and they got to figure it out. My concern with the scheme and the run defense is we heard all off season and training camp about how aggressive and they want to get in the backfield and they want to fly upfield. And I was kind of wondering, like, our team's going to take advantage of that aggressiveness and let them fly upfield. And then when they blow out of the gaps, they're just going to run through them. And maybe that was part of what the Eagles did. But they were also just blowing the Packers off the line of scrimmage. Yeah. So it feels like they need to get used to the scheme and what they're being asked to do, which is a lot different from what they were being asked to do with Joe Barry. But it just feels like all the parts have to work together, particularly the defensive front and the linebackers. And the linebackers, for the most part, and we can talk about Edgerrin Cooper was a bright spot, but he was limited to 11 snaps. But other than that, the linebackers struggled and the defensive line struggled. They got to play up to their abilities. And that's one of those, why can't they stop the run? It's only one game, but that's a lingering issue from not just last year, but several years. And it's concerning. And you got Jonathan Taylor coming in this week and another running quarterback. So they better figure it out quick.
Well, and again, I'll jump in and sort of be the balancing voice here to remind what we talked about, and not more than once on this here podcast leading into the season. We were more than likely going to see probably 4 to 8 weeks of the defense trying to figure it out,
right?
And it can look disastrous when one or two guys miss a read, miss a call. It doesn't take much for the whole thing to look just totally awry, right? So that's where I would say, I mean, I haven't looked at the all 22 and gone, break it down like you would with a coach or something, but watching the game, there was a lot of good things in that were similar to last season. One of the things that I was saying last season before things actually got turned around was like, this team isn't quitting, right? You're seeing a lot of mistakes being made, some ugly football. They were losing games. It was like, daggum, man, these teams, like these guys just keep playing till the end, like to a point where you're almost like, do you guys realize you're getting beat? And I see a lot of that still. Like these guys are making mistakes, but they are flying around. They're doing it high speed. And you don't see guys just sort of loafing around looking unready or anything like that. I think you're just seeing high-speed mistakes or high-speed miscommunications, which, to be fair, that's what a coach asks you to do, right? Like coaches, I don't even care. I've heard it across all the sports. Like if you're going to make a mistake, do it full speed. Like do it trying hard. So I think those things are encouraging. That sounds like, moral victories and stuff like that. And that's not what I'm trying to do. But we do have to, again, look at this as week one. Week one is always sloppy. Week one is always kind of a bit of a crapshoot. And we talked about that before week one. Why it is because you don't have film on the other side, right? We didn't know what a Vic Fangio Eagles defense was necessarily going to do, right? You've seen some of the players. You've seen Vic Fangio and other teams, but you haven't seen these players with this coach and what they might do. And that's tough for an offense to plan for. Just plain and simple, it is. On the inverse of that, to sort of play the counter perspective, last season, week one, well, you've got a very familiar opponent in week one. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, it's the Bears. You're beating the crap out of them all for years now. And second of all, they hadn't changed anything really from the previous season to that week one. So there was just there was a lot of predictability in that, and you were able to go out and prepare well for that, and you see what that looked like, right? It looked really good, and then you saw a lot of struggles ensue after that. You're going, wait a second, what happened to that team that got to prepare for the Bears? And that can be a good illustration of how that goes, right? So if you get a familiar opponent in week 1, it can actually go really well in your favor, as opposed to what we got here, which is a lot of question marks. So very tough to prepare for, and you had less time and effort to allocate towards preparation because you were doing all the travel and logistics and all that. But I'm very encouraged still by it. I'll be the eternal optimist until I'm not, and then I'll hit the panic button really hard. But I really did see a lot of things I liked, and I do leave open a lot of room for the Eagles being a good team, right? Like, first of all, that D line is massive. They are huge and they're good. I mean, is it Jordan Davis? I think it
Jordan
was.
Davis.
He was one of the best defensive linemen. Jalen Carter. It was Jalen Carter who was a rookie last year. He was one of the best defensive linemen last year as a rookie in the league. So it's like, he's kept doing that. He's still pretty damn good. So is Jordan Davis. Yeah, those two next to each other is insane. And the guys around him are pretty damn good. And their defensive coordinator has historically been pretty damn good. So there's just a lot there to say. We can be disappointed by how the Packers looked, but they were up against a pretty good opponent, and we'll see how that plays out. Really quick, want to just take a moment to buzz through some of the notable PFF grades. Again, we don't live and die by PFF, but it is good, just a little objective measure to throw up there and see what we think. So just your top few players who actually had good games on the offense for the Packers. Zach Tom graded out at 92 on PFF. That is elite. That's a great game by Zach Tom. Jaden Reed, another one. Your MVP front runner after week 1. Just write that down. Jaden Reed. He had an 89.2. Again, that's borderline elite. So great games by those two guys. Elgton Jenkins had a good game, 78.4. Emmanuel Wilson had a 69.8. And Jordan Morgan actually had a 67.7, and things kind of went downhill from there. Interesting, Jordan Morgan, your 5th highest graded player in the offense in his first NFL game. I don't believe he started. I think Ryan started, but it looked like they rotated him in there.
Yeah. I think Ryan played about 42 snaps, and Morgan was 28, something like that.
28.
But they were rotating him. He, first time out against a good defensive line. I think he held up pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, he could have had a worse game. There's certainly, Sean Ryan definitely graded out a little bit worse than he did, and Josh Myers he's down there. There's a guy. Somebody make sure he's not on Twitter, because Packers Twitter's coming for him. They're just not buying the coaches' lines anymore. But yeah, the bottom graded players from this game on offense. Malik Willis was your bottom graded at 42.5.
He played 2 snaps.
So take that for what it's worth. Musgrave with 17 snaps had a 43.8, not good. Dontavian Wicks with 31 snaps had a 44, not good. And then Myers was after that at a 50.1.
And So, I mean, the Wicks, we all love Wicks, but everybody's expecting this is, Wicks breakout season and all that. Didn't play well. I mean, he had a drop in that game. And then another thing that apparently was really surprising to me, and maybe we should have caught this sooner, but I don't know how we would have. Musgrave got significantly fewer snaps than Tucker Kraft. I think Tucker Kraft was out there for all but like 3 snaps in the game.
Yeah, so Kraft had 54 snaps and Musgrave had 17.
17, yeah. So, I mean, maybe that changes week to week. Maybe, maybe they come closer to evening out. But certainly week 1, it was a clear tight end number 1 was Tucker Kraft. And
to be clear,
had a much stronger game.
The split on that, because my mind first went to, was Tucker Kraft in there for a lot of the run snaps? He had 33 pass snaps as opposed to Luke Musgrave's 9 pass snaps. So, he seemed like he was tight end 1 in this game.
Yeah. I mean, he was clearly. I think he played, all but 3 snaps in the game for the offense, which, yeah. I don't know what to make of that yet. I mean, again, it's week 1. We'll see what happens, but that's pretty significant,
Yeah.
and even if it's kind of like game plan specific, you still wouldn't expect that big of a gap between the two of them. So maybe it's a sign of things to come, maybe not, and maybe the Colts game, it's more, they each get 35 snaps or whatever a breakout would be. But something to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. Yeah, we won't get into everybody's PFF grade. There was some, a lot of guys in the middle of the road there, but on the defense, so our top graded guys on the defense that, silver linings to this loss, Edgerrin Cooper, top graded guy, only had 11 snaps, but
He's
came
going
out
to
with
get,
an 85.9.
yeah,
I think he earned himself some more.
yeah, he's going to get more.
Yeah, I think
He looked good.
Looked good. Xavier McKinney came in with a 76.2, also looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Looks like he got knocked a little bit in the run defense, but overall had a good game. Interception. It was fun to watch him fly around in a Packers jersey. Eric Stokes came in with a 66.7. Keyshawn Nixon came in with a 65.4. And then Van Ness came in with a 65.3. Now, Nixon did get a nice mark for his pass rush at 92.3 on the pass rush ability. Came flying in there on a blitz. That was kind of fun to watch. But and actually, he had 2 pass rush snaps, to be clear. But yeah, overall, those were your top guys graded on the defense. And then the bottom of this list is actually quite disappointing. Again, not end all be all. We're not just giving PFF all the authority here, but worth looking at. So TJ Slayton comes in at a 42.7. Next is Carl Brooks at a 42.4. Next is Kingsley Nagbari at a 41.3. Kenny Clark with a 39.4. And Isaiah McDuffie at 35.7. So all veteran guys. And the bottom 2, honestly, are guys that I would expect to just have a floor of a pretty good PFF grade. So very disappointing there.
I think Kenny Clark had a bad game. And I love Kenny Clark, but he didn't play well. I'm not sure I agree with all those PFF grades, but
fair.
I thought Quay Walker struggled, and I thought Preston and Rashawn Gary and Matt LaFleur called out the pass rush after the game where he said he expected more from them.
To be fair,
I expected a lot. They were pretty invisible, Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith.
Well, Smith, Gary, and Walker, those 3 all graded out right near each other, and they weren't much higher. They just weren't bottom 5. Okay. So, I mean,
and I'll give the pass rush a little bit of a break because I wonder how much they were really pass rushing and how much they were containing because of the quarterback that can run in Jalen Hurts. So maybe they weren't flying off the ball like they normally would be. They wanted to stay in their lane, stay in their gaps, keep them in the pocket. Maybe that had something to do with it. And it probably have the same game plan this week against Anthony Richardson, where they're not going to want to fly up the field and let him run. But even still, I mean, for LaFleur to come out after the game and said he was expecting better from the pass rush, that's kind of an eye opener there. They weren't good. And another guy that we didn't talk about is Jair Alexander. Didn't have a strong game. I know he had one interception that was kind of, I don't want to say it was given to him, but it was such a bad decision and a bad throw by Jalen Hurts. And he got beat badly for a touchdown, the big touchdown right after halftime by A.J. Brown. And teams aren't scared of throwing on Jair. And we saw that last year when he played. Nobody's scared of throwing on him, no matter how much he talks. I do want to
say, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I got to stop doing that. I'll continue the point. But I do want to say, we haven't gotten to see Jair go take on the other team's number 1 guy for a while. It's been more of like hold down your side of the field. When the guy comes over there, he comes over there. He was with A.J. Brown. Like that looked like that was, I'm not 100% of the snaps, but he was following A.J. Brown, it looked like. So I will give credit for that. And I also will say, after getting torched the way he did on that long touchdown, it would have been really easy for him to hang his head and have a really just even worse game. And he made A.J. Brown earn everything until the end of the game. Like, he was fighting him on every snap, and I give him full credit for that.
And I'll say that A.J. Brown's kind of a tough matchup for him.
He's a great receiver, man.
He's a great receiver, but he's a big receiver. Jair's not a big dude.
Right.
So, it was a tough matchup, and I don't want, again, it's week 1, but it's one of those things, the run defense, Jair's performance, it's disappointing, and it's stuff that we've seen in the past, and it's kind of carrying over. The red zone offense, not being able to finish drives, which we didn't even talk about that, and I think that's one of the biggest factors in the game. You got 3 takeaways, you only got 9 points. Especially the 2 in the first quarter back to back, and they're set up deep in Eagles territory, and they kicked 2 field goals.
Yeah.
They had red zone issues last year scoring touchdowns. So it's,
you get that gold zone back.
Yeah. It's like, it's one game, but some of these issues are things we've seen in the past that are, again, still here. And those are the ones that I'm more concerned about. So, Jair, going back to Jair, it was nice to see them actually match him up on the top wide receiver. Didn't go so well. So hopefully he can redeem himself. Yeah, and hopefully he gets more comfortable in the scheme. But the thought was there. And I think on the flip side, a positive one, because I know I'm being too negative, but it was nice to see Eric Stokes on the field.
Yes.
And played pretty well.
Yeah, he was the 3rd highest graded player on the defense.
Yeah, I know he missed a tackle or 2. And again, that's another issue, too many missed tackles.
For his tackling, yeah.
Right. But as far as coverage goes, I think he held up pretty good for the first time he's been truly healthy since 2022. Because when he played last year, he wasn't healthy. So
the only player that graded better than him in coverage was McKinney. So
makes sense. And McKinney had a nice game. And oh my God, what a difference the safeties are. McKinney and Bullard compared to what we saw last year.
I got to bring in a comment on that one. We got our friend Chris C here. There you go. Appreciate you joining us, Chris. Love to having you. That hit from Bullard on Brown, though. Yep. All right. Now, listen, we can gripe. We can be upset about the loss. We can say, hey, there's some things about this defense I didn't like. But I'll tell you what, there were a few signs of a change in this defense. And Bullard stepping up and smacking Brown. Oh, man. That was just that was something my little Packers soul needed. So I'm glad Chris called that out. It was just a beautiful moment. Really love to see that, especially from a rookie on one of the top receivers, man.
And Bullard's not a big dude. No. AJ Brown is a big receiver. I mean,
he's bigger than Bullard. Brown is bigger than Bullard.
Much bigger than Bullard.
Yeah.
And so Bullard took him down.
I loved that, man. And it looked like AJ Brown was okay. We're not celebrating anybody getting hurt.
No. Of course,
don't want to see that. We're not Vikings fans. But yeah, just the attitude is what I celebrate. A rookie with that kind of attitude to go and challenge a top dog receiver like that is very much bigger than him. Man, that just yes, give me that guy on my defense 100 days out of 100. So that, let's capture some bright spots about it. That one was a big one. I will say we also have to call out a few things on here. There was one top coverage grade was McKinney. One of the top tackling grades, also McKinney, but also Bullard. He had a good tackling grade. So there was a few bright spots in here. Bullard also had the highest run defense grade. That's the one that I was looking for. So he was the highest graded run defender, your rookie safety. So that's a pretty good bright spot. You want to see that? Yeah. I believe he did have a pretty good number of tackles as well.
Yeah, and I mean that Bullard, I think, played decent for him. And Edgerrin Cooper, even though he only got 11 snaps, man, you saw him just about all those 11 snaps. He was doing something positive. It ain't gonna be long before he's taking Eric Wilson snaps, and then after that, is he gonna take Isaiah McDuffie's or Quay Walker's? One of them, he's gonna be on the field for somebody.
Well, I'll say this, and again, we can't take PFF as gospel, but if Isaiah McDuffie is consistently getting 35s on PFF, he's not holding off Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah. And, McDuffie got beat for the touchdown pass by Barkley, but I saw today on Twitter an interesting, the all 22 coaches film on that play. McKinney was coming over the top to help and he slipped. And it looked like McKinney would have got there in time to at least contest the throw, if not break that up. So he slipped on the turf, like so many players. So maybe, and either way for McDuffie, covering Saquon Barkley's tough for any linebacker to do. So let's not kill him.
He is a great running back.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, Edgerrin Cooper's going to get on the field. We saw Bullard. Jordan Morgan did some good things, especially when you consider, he had no preseason action, because he missed time with the injury, and he was going up against a really good defensive line. So I thought he held up well at right guard in that game, and wouldn't surprise me if he's taken more Sean Ryan snaps, maybe even this weekend against the Colts, but certainly soon he's going to be taking some of the Sean Ryan snaps, if not just taking all of the snaps at right guard.
Yeah.
The one strange, talking about snaps and playing time was Evan Williams didn't get on the field on defense, and he was one of the stars of training camp. Strange that they didn't find a way to get him in there somehow, even if he was just playing 10 to 15 snaps, something like that. Really thought, what he did in the preseason and training camp, that they were going to definitely find a package for him and get him on the field. So,
I'm that's where I kind of look at this with the whole Brazil trip. Like, I think that plays a huge factor into it. And it can sound like excuses, but it's just a reality. When you got a guy who's a rookie, and obviously Bullard's a rookie too, but I think there's just a different trust level there. And you also don't know what the situation is. He might be squarely behind McKinney right now on the depth chart. And if that's the case, you're just not going to take McKinney off the field to put Williams on it. And you haven't had a chance to find a way to get him in a different position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's not taking McKinney off the field. Nobody is, but like a 3 safety package, or maybe Nixon comes out and Bullard goes to the slot, and then you have Williams and McKinney at safety. Like,
I think you will get that, but I think that's where it's like in week 1 against a good opponent, with some unknowns and the road trip. Like, there's just a lot there that would say, hey, let's save that for next week. When we can spend a little extra time working on it, or have some time to think about when do we want to deploy this? What look do we want this to be out against? I think those are the types of things that come along in the season. To not see him have one snap is surprising, but that's where it does make me think that he might be just number 2 behind McKinney, and you're not taking McKinney off the field for Williams.
No, and they shouldn't. But I just, like you said, it might be something coming down the line, and I would think it is. But he was so good in preseason. It was like it just felt like they were going to find a way, 3 safeties, slot, whatever, to get him on the field somehow. But
I agree.
Maybe it was specific game plan matchups with the Eagles that they saw where they weren't ready to put him out there. I don't know, but just something you notice.
Yeah.
Maybe it means something. Maybe it doesn't. We'll find out.
Well, and another one from Chris C here. Van Ness didn't get a lot of playing time. Yeah, he only got 19 snaps, which not a lot. And that's a guy that there's no doubt they want to find ways to get him on the field. So I think as the season goes on, we'll see these things unfold and evolve. But yeah, I mean, overall, there's definitely stuff to be frustrated about. But there's a lot to take away from it, and I'm optimistic, and if I guess maybe if there is a good way to segue here, Joseph M jumping in with us. Good to see you, Joseph. Appreciate you listening with us tonight. Do you think the Packers defense can keep us alive until J Love is back? Whew, man.
I mean,
take it, Tim. Do we want to dive right into this? Is this the time to jump into this?
Yeah, I think we should segue into what they got to do to stay alive with Malik Willis.
All right.
Can the Packers defense keep him alive? I haven't seen them do it, and I know it's just one game with Halfley, so this is completely different than what we've seen in the past. But they didn't show me enough in that first game. But it is one game. I'm more confident in the coaching staff. I'm more confident in what they're trying to run with the players that they have. But they're going to have to play a part in it. They're certainly going to have to be a lot better than they were against the Eagles. So can they keep it alive? Not to do like all coach speak, but I think it's going to be everybody's got to keep them alive. You know, they're got to have a run game. The receivers got to step up because they don't have much chemistry with Malik Willis. They got to make plays for him. The offensive line has to pass, protect, and run block better, especially run block consistently. And the defense has to be much better. So it's everyone. Can the defense do it? It depends. It depends on what you mean by keep them alive. Like, are they going to hold, the next 3 opponents to 10 points a game?
That would be something.
That would be something. That would be keeping them alive and giving them. I highly doubt it. But can they do their part? Can they create turnovers? Can they keep the score manageable and winnable? Give the offense enough chances to score points to win the game? It's possible. I can't say I'm real confident just because I haven't seen them do it. But with what they have to work with the opponents that they have coming up the next 3 weeks, I think it's possible. But they're going to need a whole lot more than just the defense to keep things alive.
Well, and the fortunate thing is where we're at in the season. If he misses the next 3 games, which it seems like that at this point might be worst case scenario, and you go 0-3, you start the season 0-4. After what they did last season, after what we've seen so many times, with Aaron Rodgers, the relax, the run the table, you can recover from an 0-4 stretch. You don't have to be the 1 seed in the NFC, but you can certainly still make the playoffs. Let's see here. We got, I believe, the Vikings in that stretch at some point, right?
Yeah, it's Colts at home, at Tennessee, home Vikings. That's the next 3 weeks.
Okay, so
it's manageable, but
if you beat the Vikings and you lose the other 2, you're fine. You're right there in the division, and those are AFC teams. You're right there in the conference still.
Maybe, but 0-4 or 1-3, your margin for error shrinks, and I don't think if you're 0-4. Forget about winning the division. Like, I can't see that being realistic. Maybe, but I can't see it being realistic. And making the playoffs it's going to take a hell of a run, and that puts a lot of pressure on Jordan Love. So part of it's too how you get there. Like, if things start improving, if the issues we saw in game 1, things start improving, and the only thing holding you back is Malik Willis, then maybe you can say, all right, Jordan Love's going to come back and they're going to take off and click and go on a run and make the playoffs, and then who knows what can happen. But to me, they got to win a game. And going back to Jordan Love's injury, like, we've seen it 3 to 4 weeks, 3 to 6. I'm kind of expecting 2 games, and maybe that's me just being optimistic.
You're throwing around the word "if" this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of that would be awesome. It would be incredible, but I'm hoping it's just 2 weeks. But if they can get a win or 2 while he's out, that would be huge. And I don't care how they win, how ugly it's got to be, because it's going to be ugly. It would be huge. But if they come back and they're in an 0-3 or 0-4 hole, man, that's going to be tough to dig out of. And I know they went on the run last year and they can do it again, but it just puts so much more pressure on them the rest of the way. Like, they got to find a way to win some games. And to me, especially this Colts game, this is on Matt LaFleur and Tom Clemens. Get your quarterback ready, and your game plan has to be tailored to Malik Willis. And that's a tough thing to do, because what they should be asking him to do is a lot of RPOs, read options, quarterback run, like movement. That's what he's good at. That's, using his legs. And unfortunately, that's probably a lot of stuff that they have in practice, because he wasn't here all summer.
Right.
And that's not, so this is now all of a sudden, like, we got to scheme the defense or scheme the offense to a quarterback who's just been here for 2 weeks and is a different kind of quarterback than Jordan Love. Like, you can't just go in there and say, yep, these are the plays we run with Jordan. This is our offense. We're going to run the same things with Malik Willis, because he's not going to be able to do it. And that's not a knock on him necessarily. It's just, he hasn't been there for it, and it's not what he does best. So this is Matt LaFleur, Tom Clemens, get your quarterback ready to play. but have the correct game plan that's going to help him and take advantage of what he does best.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, part of watching this game against the Eagles, I did feel like there was some I don't know, some remnants of the I don't know, the first half of last season when I was suspicious that Stenavich was calling the shots. It just felt like a not well thought out game plan on offense against the Eagles. Now, I will say there's something here. There's a bright spot, and it's kind of impacted by anomalies, but at the same time, still a bright spot. Is the Packers ran for 7.8 yards a carry against the Eagles, and yes, Jaden Reed had the 133 yarder, but Emmanuel Wilson ran for 11 and a half yards a carry on 4 carries. And Jacobs ran for 5.5 yards or 5.3 yards a carry. So they ran the ball. It looked and felt like they were really struggling to do that. But I mean, they ran for 163 yards, 7.8 yards a carry and a touchdown. Like, that's a successful day running the ball, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, they ran. Jacobs ran the ball really well in the second half. He had nothing in the first half.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine.
That's true,
that's they did run it better in the second half, but kind of to your point, like it didn't feel like they ran it that well, but they did have some explosive runs with Jacobs. Obviously, Jaden Reed's touchdown run was 33 yards.
And Wilson put together a few.
That kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He broke off some nice runs for him, so that's a confidence builder. But they did find some runs there, especially in the second half, some explosive runs and ran the ball kind of better than what it felt like for the game, but it's going to have to improve. And the good thing is, and not to get too far ahead of our script here, with the take on the Colts, is the Colts run defense was pretty damn bad in week 1.
Okay. I haven't even looked at that yet.
Joe Mixon ran for 159 yards. They were, as a team, Houston was over 200 yards on them.
Okay.
So this, that would, you talk about what's going to help Malik Willis, a running game would help him a lot.
Yeah. And they have it, right? So I think that's where we don't need to panic yet, and
No.
Certainly things look sloppy, but you have talent on the offensive line. Okay. So that's there. It will continue to get better as they gel. You have good running backs. You can see that. I don't think, and I know there were some people questioning Josh Jacobs there, a little bit while, live tweeting the game, but when you go back and you look at his game, it's like, yeah, he's a good running back. That's a good defense that he ran against, but he's a good running back. He made some good runs. He stuck with it. And Emmanuel Wilson's not a bad RB2, and Jaden Reed obviously has the ability to get involved there as well. I don't think that's going to be a one-off. He may not run for 33 yards for a touchdown every week, but, he probably will get a carry or two almost every week.
Yeah, and I think this week I would expect you're going to see a creative run game where it's going to be Jacobs, but they're going to involve a lot of motion. You're going to see those, end arounds, jet motion, handoffs.
Watson get involved a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be part of the plan. I think you're going to have Malik Willis potentially on some design runs, or at least on the read options. We've seen Jordan Love do that a little bit last year, so it's in there in the playbook somewhere. I think you're going to see a lot more of it because Malik Willis can run. But yeah, it's to your point, like Josh Jacobs is a good back. We saw that in the second half against the Eagles, and they're going to need a lot more of that now with Jordan Love out.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, not the time to panic, and it's looking like Jordan Love will be out for less time than originally thought. So, there's reason to believe that they may only need to make this work for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, hopefully not more than that. We don't need to look ahead right now. We've got podcasts in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about those games when they get here. Right now, we're looking at the Colts. We're talking about the Eagles game and some of the takeaways there and why it's not time to panic after that. The Eagles are a good opponent. You're going to have mistakes in week 1. You're traveling to a foreign country. It's a long trip. There's just so many reasons why that could go off the rails. So there's just not reasons to panic. Those are not things that are going to derail the whole season. What derails a season is Jordan Love not being back for, the whole season.
Yeah.
So I think that, at the end of the day, no, we don't panic. We see what's going to happen next. And I do think they've got a decent shot to beat the Colts here. I think that you'll probably have, guys feeling good about not having to travel. But you also have an offense in the Colts. Yeah, you got to be able to stop Jonathan Taylor. And a Badgers fan here, man. I love that guy. He's a hell of a runner. That's not going to be an easy task. And Anthony Richardson certainly is talented, but he is still super raw. And I don't think he's anybody that is going to be the guy that puts the offense on his shoulder and wins the game for him. I think that if anybody, that's Jonathan Taylor. So, your secondary probably gets a break. You're not going to have the onslaught that you had with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. He's not – I'm not going to call him the best quarterback. He's a pretty good quarterback. He's able to get the job done. And Saquon Barkley, by the way. So it's just – I think that this offense is a little bit less of a challenge than what you have with the Eagles. And the defense should continue to take steps forward. I don't think just because there's sloppy play in week one, that means, this scheme is just not going to work. You have to leave room for the fact that these guys are going to get better. We obviously really like what we see from Edgerrin Cooper. There were some bright spots, in the secondary. I think the D line is probably the biggest concerns. They had the worst grades kind of across the board. But all of that, you got to take that week to week. It's going to be a different line matchup. The Colts line is pretty good. So the D line's got their work cut out for them again. But yeah, no time to panic for me. I'm actually, I'm kind of looking forward to this. I mean, so I think the question here is, and we got a few of the comments flying around. I will give one of our friends here his due. Our Showers, good to see you. Glad you made it. Who said we should have gotten a vet backup? There's the receipt. You got the receipts. You got it, man. So credit where credit is due. We got the vet backup, and now we need them. So much sooner than we wanted to, but at least that's where the front office's head was at. So that's a good thing. I want to make sure we're not missing any of the other comments. You guys are flying through the comments. We appreciate it. Love all the chatter, man. Yeah. So ultimately what the question comes down to is, what do they have to do to win this game against the Colts? Do you want to take a stab at that one?
Well, I think when you're playing the Colts, like you mentioned Jonathan Taylor, and we saw what the Packers run defense was against Saquon Barkley. So like the focus has to be slowing down Jonathan Taylor. Anthony Richardson, he only completed 9 passes against Houston, but like 3 of them were gorgeous.
Yeah.
Go back and look at the 60-yard touchdown bomb he threw. I mean, holy God.
Yeah.
The dude's got a big arm. He's like a 240-some pound quarterback. He can run, tons of athletic ability, but he is super raw. I mean, like I said, he only completed 9 passes for the entire game. And there were 3 really nice ones, and the rest of them, I mean, it was all over the place. And it's almost like sometimes he lets go of the ball and he don't even know where it's going. But he's dangerous, and it's chaotic a little bit. And this could be one of those wild, wacky kind of games. I think it's going to be really ugly, but it could also be like a little bit crazy because you have, Richardson and Malik Willis, who are guys who can run. They have strong arms, but the accuracy isn't there. They have some raw tools, but the accuracy, the playing from the pocket, reading out of defense, going through your reads, like all the quarterbacking, the true quarterbacking stuff is, in a nice way, it's not developed yet, let's say. But there's a ton of physical tools. So it's Richardson could go, 0 for 10, but then that 11th pass might be a 70-yard bomb down the middle of the field between 3 guys. That's, one of the best throws you ever see. It's just boom or bust, it seems like, with him. So he's dangerous. He'll also probably give you some chances at getting takeaways too. To me, it starts with Jonathan Taylor and keeping him in check, because if he's running all over you, it's going to make it so much easier for them to manage Anthony Richardson. They won't have to put the ball in his hands. Everything will be safer for him. if you can take Jonathan Taylor away and make Anthony Richardson beat you from the pocket, you have a really good shot.
Yeah.
So it starts with the run defense. And then I think for the Packers on offense, and we already talked about it, like the game plan has to be tailored to what Malik Willis does well, which is using his legs. I mean, he's going to have to throw the ball. I'm not saying he's not going to throw the ball, but it's got to be a lot of movement. So, they have the play action and bootlegs in the playbook, but you're going to have to go to RPOs, read options, design quarterback runs, stuff like that. And then get creative in the running game and hope that, Josh Jacobs can have this success on him that Houston had on the Colts run defense last week, because they shredded the Colts on the ground last week.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody needs to step up. The receivers don't have any chemistry with Malik Willis, but go out there and make some plays for him.
Right.
When he throws it a ball, like windows contested catches, fight for the ball, fight through contact, go back and get the ball. No drops this week. There were still too many balls that were potentially catchable in that Eagles game that they didn't come up with. So, yeah, to me, it's just offensively, you got to tailor the game plan to what he does well. Malik Willis, that is.
Right.
And that's your hope. If they can't do that, if it's the same offense that we see them try to run with Jordan Love, that to me won't be on Malik Willis. That's on Matt LaFleur. So
I don't think they would do that.
I don't think so either. I hope they wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would hope Matt LaFleur knows that, it's got to be structured and set up to help Malik Willis, but we'll see. And I almost think, you got to tell Malik Willis, once you get through like your second read, if it's not there, just take off and go.
Yeah.
Just tuck and run. I
think in this game, and I gotta, again, we're having some fun over here in the comments, so I gotta at least entertain it. But R says who said we should have gotten the vet backup, and then Malik is not a vet backup.
No, he's not.
He is. He's not a rookie, right?
Well, yeah, he's not a rookie, but yeah, I hear you are. I know what you're saying.
Having some fun with you, man. Yeah. But anyway, no, if they're going to win this game, the strategy has to be shortening the game by running the ball, right? And it does, like the Colts did show you that you can do that to them with Mixon running all over them. I think that's what it's got to be. You've got to limit the number of drives here. You've got to, make the drives as long as possible, chew the clock as much as possible. And yeah, I think RPOs are part of that. Read options are part of that. Some of these end around things, just keeping the defense guessing, and you can do that with formations. That I think that's on the coaches. I still see you. There we are. Hey, we're back. We're back.
Lost you.
All right. Yeah. All right. We're okay now. But yeah, so you have to shorten the game. You have to protect Malik Willis by shortening the game. You do that with long drives on the ground, chew up a lot of clock, get, 15, 16 play drive together, and, put it in and take up, 7-8 minutes or more, 15 minutes maybe. And if you can do that, you can at least keep the game in reach, right? And I think on the other side of that, like you're saying, Anthony Richardson
I think we lost Miles again. So I think I'll just pick up. I think his point's, a very good one. Shorten the game. and make it easier for your quarterback with a running game. That's their hope. And I think it's got to be one of those games that they're going to have to win ugly. It's not going to be one of those games where you come out of it and you're like, wow, man, the Packers look great in that game. What an amazing change from the Eagles game. It's going to have to be ugly. And I think just accept it if they get a win, accept it any way it comes. But the defense, keep them in the game. We had the question earlier, can they step up and help the Packers through this loss of Jordan Love over the next few weeks? I think it's possible, and they just have to give the offense a chance. You can't get buried here. You can't constantly be playing from behind, because that's going to make things so much harder on Malik Willis if he is, having to play catch up in this game and being a drop back, stand in the pocket quarterback, because that's not what he does well. So yeah, Miles, welcome back.
I made it.
Shorten the game, make it ugly, and defensively, like, keep your team in it. Give them a chance to, score the points that are going to be needed to get the running game going, to keep the running game as a factor in the game. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so go ahead and finish your point before we lost you there.
No, I don't even know where you lost me, but my point was that Anthony Richardson might give this defense a chance to win the game for the Packers, right? Like, he really might sling it around and take some risky throws and give these guys a chance to take some interceptions, to create some turnovers. You've obviously got pass rushers who should be able to put some pressure on him. So I think the defense does have a chance here to create that. And, you got to stop the run, but eventually I think they've got the tools to do that. Whether they do it or not, we'll see. But certainly I think Anthony Richardson gives your defense a chance with some risk taking to beat him and to carry this team this week, to get a sloppy W, but still a W. I think you have a chance to win a game without Jordan Love here.
Yeah, and I think if they win it, it's going to be an ugly, sloppy victory for him. But whatever, I'm fine with it. Just
whatever. Winning is winning, man.
Winning's winning, and especially under this circumstance with Malik Willis as the quarterback, like, take it any way you can get it. Who cares what it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that would be my keys to victory, though. Shorten the game, run the ball, create turnovers. This is really a good opportunity for Hafley to take a leadership position here and show that they brought him in for a reason, and that he can step up when he's needed to. But overall, I think they're swinging a lighter bat this week, just without the trip. You're at Lambeau, you're comfortable. They play well at Lambeau under LaFleur. They have done really well at Lambeau under LaFleur. So I just think in general, I look for just a little bit better energy from this team. Look for them to look a little bit more confident, a little bit more organized, less sloppy, and hopefully sneak out a W. But any final thoughts on this one?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to see what the game plan is on offense. How they're going to tailor it to Malik Willis, what it's going to look like. And then, you mentioned the sloppiness. Can they clean that up? Because there was a lot of sloppy, particularly on offense. There was a lot of sloppiness between penalties and drop passes. Can they clean that up this week? And what's the defense going to show now? Because that was kind of a disappointing opening. There were a few bright spots on defense, but overall it was disappointing. Thought the opener would be a better performance. So let's see what Hafley's got cooking for a different opponent this week. And, hopefully he learned a little bit about his defense week one and can make the adjustments now going on to week two.
Yeah. I look for that. And, that's something we criticize Barry for. So now we get to see, all right, can Hafley do that? Can he make adjustments, or are we going to see some of the same mistakes made this week? But our friend R, clowning with you, our defense has got to be so much stiffer to play ball control and field position. I agree.
Yes.
I think they have potential to do that this week. I think they were really put in a tough position last week with the offensive firepower that the Eagles have. You can probably play a little bit tighter this week in that. And then our friend Joseph here says, want to see the defense play much more aggressive. I will say, I'll defend Halfley in saying that they were pretty aggressive. Definitely not as aggressive as we want them to be, but getting 2 DB blitzes in there from Nixon that's a sign of aggression, So I think that'll evolve as the season goes on, and you get a little bit more tape on your opponents, a little bit more of an understanding, what they're going to do given certain looks. And
we lost Miles again, I think. Yeah, so just feed on that. It's the defense. We got to see how it goes. I know it's 1 week. Yes, they need to be more aggressive. Certainly, I think they were a little bit more aggressive than what we saw from Barry's defense, but they can get more aggressive from the Eagles game, particularly up front. I got to see more of a pass rush, but to me, it all starts, especially this week against Jonathan Taylor. It all starts with stopping the run, and they obviously had huge problems with Saquon Barkley. So that's the key, I think, to slowing down the Colts and keeping your team from a defensive standpoint in the game is slowing down JT.
Absolutely. Totally agree, man. All right. Well, so are you predicting a W here? Are you going to be bold enough to predict that they can win?
I haven't been feeling real good. I'm feeling better as the week goes on about it, let's just say. But yeah, I'm just not a believer in Malik Willis.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but yeah. I don't know.
You can't bring yourself to predict a loss, but you also can't predict a dub, huh?
I want to be hopeful, and I want to think that they can play complementary football, run game, defense, keep it close, win, 16-13 kind of game.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's the kind of stuff we haven't seen out of this team in the past. So is it going to change now? Maybe. But I don't know. I'm not feeling real good about this game.
I will predict a frustrating loss. I think they keep it within reach, and JT just scores a back-breaking touchdown, around like a 30-yarder at the end, where you're like, hold him to a field goal, hold it. Oh, never mind. Something like that. Yeah, I can't bring myself to predict a W here. I do see how it could happen. I do see how they could play, well enough for that to happen. I could see, the Colts are not an unbeatable opponent in this case. But yeah, I think it's more likely that they hang in there. We see a tight game, and it just gets away from at the end. That's what I think.
I think you're right. That sounds, I got to agree with you there. That's probably what I'm thinking as well. So
we'll see. We shall see. Hopefully more aggressive. Chrissy corrected me over here, says they only sent like 4 blitzes last game. 2 of them were DB blitzes. I thought they sent more than that, but hopefully they send more than that. If they only sent 4, that's unacceptable. That's not aggressive. That is not what 4 blitzes is not aggressive. We'll just say that. We could probably all agree on that. But yeah, they need to get aggressive to win this week. I get a feeling that they will, but we shall see. But most of all, friends, thank y'all for hanging out with us this week on the Packers Weekly Podcast. We always love hanging out with you guys. Check us out on YouTube, Twix, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram. Spike that like button for us if you enjoyed this episode, and please subscribe to the Packers Talk YouTube channel. We're trying to grow that thing. Tell some people about the show. If you guys think that we are fun Packer fans to talk with, let them know. Let your friends know. That's the best way to help us out. And we will see y'all next week, Packers fans. Go, Pack, go.